Hey everyone, happy Thursday. It's Derek Geisler here with PGH Networks. I want to thank everyone for joining our bonus episode of Lunchbox Leaders, Cybersecurity Unfiltered. Before we begin, I want to just go over a few housekeeping items. We had mentioned from before, the first 50 people that join the event, lunch is on us. We are providing you with a gift card for Grubhub. So hopefully you enjoy your lunch and you enjoy the event. As always, throughout the event, there's going to be questions that you have. Please feel free to post those questions into the question and answer session application. I will do my best to get those questions answered throughout the event. And then shortly after, we're going to actually have a question and answer session if there's anything that we missed during the middle of the event. So hopefully we can get all your questions answered for you. I'm really excited for today. It's going to be a really great event. If you're able to stay for the entire event, we are going to be doing another giveaway. You know, always fun to have something to give away. We're going to be giving away a phone sanitizer. So in today's COVID world that we live in, felt like it was a really good item to give somebody, so to keep your phone nice and sanitized. So exciting stuff. So for the next portion of this event, as always, we always have some really great people on to talk with us. Today we have Brian Dykstra. Brian is with Atlantic Data Forensics, and so previously in these events, we've done a lot with people that were on the front side of protecting when, you know, from a cybersecurity perspective. And today we're actually going to be on the backside. So these guys are the guys that are in it when there's something that has gone wrong, when somebody has experienced a breach. So we're going to hear from, you know, right from the mouths of the guys that are fixing stuff after stuff has gone wrong. Brian's going to take a few minutes to talk to us about, you know, from his what he sees, what you can do to kind of protect yourself, you know, from a breach occurring, and hopefully he can give us a little bit of insight into what happens, you know, as a next steps if something does happen. So Brian, it's been a 4 great episodes. I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a great 5th episode for us. So I wanted to do a quick introduction and. All you, man. So now
I'm going to bring your expectations way down. It's going to be a so 5th episode. All right, glad to be here with y'all. Thank you for the nice introduction. Can I go ahead and just start? Good.
Get going.
All right, let's do this. I get my screen up here, and hopefully that all works. All right, everybody seeing it? Give me a thumbs up. All right, nice. All right, so we're going to talk about the business impact of cybersecurity today, and yeah, we're really going to focus on what happens after the bad event happens. So, you know, after you discover ransomware, after you discover there's, you know, somebody using domain admin creds on your network, all these things that occur after the fact, because that's what we do here at Atlantic Data Forensics. We really only handle people's worst situation and worst days. The good news is we've been doing that for a really long time. So most folks' worst days is, you know, just another Thursday for me. So prior to founding Atlantic Data Forensics, I helped found Mandiant of all things. Kevin Mandiant, I started that back in 2003 on a coffee table in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, and now there's a couple $1 billion company, so that worked out okay. But since 2007, I've been doing my own thing, really just focused on 4 specific areas. So we do computer forensics around a lot of criminal and civil litigation work, as well as internal investigations within companies. We do e-discovery work. E-discovery you can think of as, you know, when people have questions about, hey, we want to know everybody that, you know, had emails or touched Project X-Ray in July of 2018. We got to go through all their mailboxes to figure out who was involved. And then the third thing we do is the incident response. Now, right now during COVID, since all the courts are shut down pretty much everywhere except for military court martials, you know, our computer forensics side is sort of shut down at the moment. But incident response, since March February, March of this year, has quadrupled in size. So actually, we were just talking about this earlier before we got started. My team's been working 7 days a week since right after the 4th of July, just keeping up with it. And it's just a constant set of, hacking, ransomware, all that sort of stuff. And then the last thing we do is we do expert witness testimony in state and federal courts behind all of this. So just, kind of give you an idea where we're at. We're really in the reactive services. Once something bad happened to you, sort of thing is where we're at.
So they actually do happen. Bad things happen.
Yeah, turns out bad things happen.
Who would have thought?
Every day of the week. I'll let you in on a little secret just right off the start. Most things are going to happen bad within your company from 8 p.m. on a Friday evening to 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. That's the hacker's favorite time to strike and to get in, because they know, of course, people aren't paying attention. It's the weekend. Most ransomware attacks that we see actually start right around 11:30 p.m. And then proceed, through the early morning hours and stuff like that. And then long weekends are a killer. Anytime there's a long weekend, that's always prime attack time. So if you're wondering when you should really be watching, weekends are the attack times. All right, so what I'm going to talk to you about.
Seems like there's some mindset behind that. Like they put some time in thinking about the best times to do it. So it's not just some kid in the basement doing it.
No, these are criminal businesses. These are proficient, active criminal businesses, and they act the way any other professionals were, but they go to work on Friday, and they work through the weekend and they work through the holidays. That's the best time to be breaking into folks' networks. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to walk through phishing and business email compromise. Since COVID started, what's going on with ransomware and how that's been changing. I'll talk to you a little bit about cloud services and exploiting those. And then, because I just hate to, dump nothing but, bad news on you, I'm going to talk about 3 primary, really basic things that you can do within your organization to prevent having to call me ever. If you get these 3 things knocked out, you probably won't need to see me. And then, we'll talk about security as a process and not really a product. I know everybody wants to buy their way out of this. It's not how it gets done. So let's start with phishing. So early on in COVID, we saw basically, it was mid-February, there was this period of time where phishing across the planet dropped off. And we all thought, oh, hey, maybe the phishers and the hackers are hunkering down too. Everybody was, just starting to go into the work from home situation. And what they were really doing is they were taking a step back and they were retooling their phishing message. So right after that, we saw a huge blast of COVID-related phishing activity. And what they were doing was they were playing on people's fears, right? So they were just mass emailing out people things from World Health Organization or from, supposedly the CDC, saying, oh, we have updated information, we have information about vaccines, we have information about this or that, in your area, click here to find out more. And of course, it's other phishing links or malware distributions or things like this. So that was what we're seeing early on in COVID. As COVID is as the whole staying at home business has moved on, they've changed up. And so what we've seen since probably May, more heavily than usual. And there's always been some ACH fraud phishing, and ACH is automated clearinghouse for those of you. It's just wire transfer money, right, to pay people. So in about May, this really kicked up hard, and honestly, people that fish for this is, like I said, again, criminal businesses. So they're only interested in the money, right? And the beauty kind of ACH fraud phishing is you don't have to have any fancy malware. You're not hacking into anybody or anything like this. You're just sending people emails saying things like, hey, when can we expect payment on that invoice? And here's my new ACH instructions for where you need to send the money to and things like this. So they're very, very simple kind of old school fraud schemes, just taken into, the cyber realm, right? So typically, a fraud scheme like this involves breaking into one person's mailbox, somebody in your finance department, somebody in your payments department, your CFO's mailbox, things like that. And the hacker gets into their mailbox and they don't do anything bad. They do nothing. What they do is they pour through that mailbox and they figure out, hey, who are the people that are paying you? What do your average invoices look like? All these type of things. They grab your letterhead, things like this, and they use that knowledge to then go ahead and set out a bunch of fraud emails to all your clients, sometimes your suppliers, and things like this, and get them to redirect payments to the hacker's bank account. In the most sophisticated versions of this, and this is more commonly what we're seeing right now, is the ACH Fraud Phisher actually creates mimic domains. So my domain is, AtlanticDF.com. They might create a domain called AtlanticDF, or AtlanticDBF.com or something like this, and then they send emails in so that when they take over that channel talking to your client, the client thinks they're communicating with me because they've got my letterhead and everything, but they're actually coming from a different domain. So they're not even using my mail server anymore. There's no chance they're going to get caught because they're operating off their very own mail servers. In the most sophisticated versions of this, they will actually clone both sides of the connection so they can respond to the accounting side, at the company when you're asking about invoices being done. They're talking to the client from fake domains, and all of them are these mimic domains. Like I said, they're one-off, slight changes to your domain name. And in others, we've actually seen them set up fake phone numbers, which I thought it was hilarious the first time I saw this because it was really well done. So what happened is, this company did have good controls for financial controls around changes of ACH information, and when they got the ACH information changed from the fraudster, it actually had a number. It's like, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to call us at, and it gave them a phone number. And so because this company had good financial controls, they called the phone number, and what they got was a voicemail at the other end that said, hey, this is such and such at company A. I'm not in the office right now, but I am checking my voicemail. Leave a message and so on. So by the company that got defrauded's rules, they'd made contact. The fraudster immediately sent them back an email and said, hey, I got your voicemail. Everything's good to go with this ACH information. And so they perpetrated the fraud, verbally on top of the email stuff. We're seeing more and more of that now because it's
just amazing. I mean,
yeah, it's thinking through and it's learning, how people make payments, how they do invoicing, things like this. And like I said, and as we went through the chain of that very first one we saw, and those folks lost about $380,000 to fraud that way. They recovered $4,000 of it, I think, almost nothing. They sort of did all the right things, right? They didn't have the good email controls in place, so they got hit with it. But they did make a phone call to verify the information, and they got a response. So it seemed, pretty legit.
Yeah. We actually have seen this happen or attempted as early as even like the beginnings of last year, where they started doing some of these attempts, these ACH fraud phishing attempts, right? Where they basically what they do is they somehow get your password, they get somebody's password, right? Whether they phish them or they send them a OneNote link, and ask you to enter your login and password. That seems to be the hot one right now. And they get it, and then all of a sudden we get a call like, there's something weird going on. This company's asking us for $50,000 for this invoice, or one of my CFO just got an email from this company saying that they wired the information over, and it's like, wait a second, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. We're not doing something right. So, one of the things that we like to focus on, you had mentioned, is from, I think where they may have failed there is Google the phone number. Don't just call the phone number on the email.
Know who you're calling, where you're calling. Yeah. But a lot of finance departments have very simple rules. Well, call the number and verify. Not call the right number and verify, just call the number and verify.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, again, these are criminal businesses. So in many of these, current ACH frauds that we've been working, we'll find that, the mimic domain that they've just registered, a week earlier, that same registrar has registered 10 other mimic domains for 10 other victim sites that are currently getting hit. So, these guys have a full-time business, where one fraudster is working over 8 to 10 companies a week, every week. If they take $300,000 off of each one of those companies, that's a pretty good week.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps this going. And it doesn't matter what size the company is or how much money they get from you, all of it's, rather low risk, low effort type work, right? They don't have to put in a lot of work. There's no extreme skill set or 0-day exploits or, fancy malware or anything else going on here. It's all very simple stuff.
And it's a lot of rinse and repeat, right? It just over and over.
If you're doing 10 a week, I mean, come on. Even if only half of those hit, you're still into lots and lots of, basically free low effort money. All right, so here's this is a no kidding real example. We call it how to lose $8 million through business email compromise. This happened to our client. So the phisher actually compromises the CFO at company A. He then uses company A's CFO's email account to phish a bunch of other CFOs. So he gathered up all their credentials too. Once he had a good collection of those various CFOs, they started sending out new ACH instructions and things like this to everybody that those companies were billing, and then the money just starts getting redirected, right? It all ends up going to this different accounts. It's common, really, because most of us operate on net 30 terms and things like that. You don't even start to notice that money's not showing up from that invoice. Oftentimes nobody says anything until it's 60 days past due, right? Then somebody finally goes, hey, that's weird. We didn't get paid by such and such. And geez, it's strange. We also didn't get paid by this company, and this company. So maybe they start reaching out, or maybe they start sending emails and things like this. Well, if you're 60 days, past the time that fraud occurred, that money's gone.
Yeah.
Typically when we have an opportunity to recover money, working with bank fraud departments, we have to be in the first 72 hours that the money went missing to have any kind of chance of stopping that money eventually being transferred to somewhere in Russia or Eastern Europe or somewhere into mainland China. And once it's there, we've lost it. There's no ability to get it back anymore. So not only did this client not take in $8 million worth of payments that they were expecting, they have all these clients who are out a total of $8 million who believe they paid company A, and they now want their product. Of course, company A can't deliver their product, but what we paid you came from your CFO's mailbox. And so as you would expect, all kinds of litigation came after this with, we paid you, it came from your CFO, we don't care if it went to the wrong bank account, we want our services and products. So it's they haven't gone out of business yet, but I think they're hanging on by a thread, because it's there's probably a dozen different lawsuits associated out there with this one business email compromise. Yeah,
and it's you think to yourself, well, so they're already out 8 million, right? Because they have to figure out a way to get their product out, and they have to figure out a way to be compensated back for that 8 million. But then to add on top of that, the legal fees and the time and the so it expands the amount of money that you're just bleeding when something like this happens. From a simple,
not to mention the damage it does to your customers, faith in you and everything else, right? Your reputation with your clients and all that sort of thing is bad. And I know some of you, smart folks out there are probably thinking, well, my cybersecurity insurance is going to cover that. All right, cybersecurity insurance will cover things like, having a company like me come in and do the investigation, fines that, some government or regulatory agency may levy on you, a law firm to send out notifications of the incident and things like this. What they're not going to do is put that $8 million back in anybody's account. That's not what a cybersecurity insurance policy does. And you can get cache writers to add on to them to cover some types of fraud, but nothing in the neighborhood of 8 million. It's, usually caps out somewhere around 2 million, things like that. And that's a very expensive policy. If it's going to put $2 million back in your account, you're going to be paying a lot of money for that. So and you also have to remember there's no real hacking involved here, right? I conned people out of money via email. There's not a lot of hacking technique going on here. All right, then we move on to my friend ransomware. I'm going to give you some numbers here. I don't, average cost of ransomware attack on a business, they say it's $33,000. That came from Sophos. Our numbers are, the cost of ransomware attack easily goes over $100,000. With a client of any size, it's always that by the time the butcher's bill comes due for all of that. 60% of small business hit by ransomware go out of business within a year. That came from AIG. So that's an actual insurer saying, look, we paid on these claims, and how they classify a small business is a lot bigger than I do. So they classify a small business as 500 employees or less is a small business to them. That's a lot of what I consider to be fairly good sized companies going out of business because they got hit by a ransomware attack. And we have absolutely seen that happen. Ransomware attacks increased 97% over the past 2 years. That came from my friends over at FishMe. I don't remember who they belong to now, but we've definitely seen that. We've seen about a 400% increase this year in this sort of stuff. 34% of businesses hit with malware took a week or more to regain access. We typically find it's 30 days or more if there's any kind of large-scale ransomware takeover. And the ransoms themselves, where they used to be a few $100s per system or server, we're now seeing ransomware requests for millions of dollars. So it's really, really gotten out of hand. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Ransomware is a real threat. Yesterday, the FBI held a nationwide open conference call for healthcare providers to let them know that TrickBot and the Ryuk ransomware team are back, and they're specifically targeting healthcare providers. So it's just continuous out there right now. It's also changing and getting more sophisticated. So last half of 2019, we started to see ransomware groups really changing up what they were doing. And I believe the first one we saw that with was, God, name escapes me now. I'll figure it out in a minute. But one of the big ransomware groups, they were starting to catch on to the fact that some folks actually had decent backups. So we still have in our heads, most people, when you think when they think about ransomware, they think, oh, well, Jim in marketing clicked on this link and then that's how the ransomware started, and that got to everybody. That is absolutely like 3-4-year-old ransomware methodology. Ransomware nowadays is just a symptom of a larger data breach.
Yeah.
So what we see happening is typically an attack group or a hacking group has broken into your company, typically 3 to 4 weeks before the ransomware actually hits. They've gone around, they've mapped out all the most critical systems in your company. They've managed to get themselves domain admin credentials, things like this. And they've stolen anywhere from 10 to 100 gigabytes of data. They go after your most critical stuff, right? Your payroll files, your HR files, your customer lists, anything that's got contracts and payment terms, anything that's marked confidential or anything like that. They gather all that stuff up, and they take it off, with them. And then sometime late on a Friday night, they launch the ransomware attack. All right, so if you're in a well-run organization, and you get ransomware, and okay, we got a notification, and okay, we got to, restore 300, servers or something like this. what ransomers were finding was that in a good organization, they could rapidly, rapidly being 2 weeks or something like this, restore all those servers. So what they do is contact them and say, you didn't pay us the ransom that we requested. If you don't pay us this amount of money, and it's usually $1 million or more, and it's typically 10 days, we're going to dump this 100 gig of data that we stole from you out onto the internet, and we're going to dump it on these pastebin sites, and we're going to dump it on all these sites around the world, and all of your most sensitive information is going to be in the wind. And they absolutely do it. They actually do announcements, press release style, when they've broken into a company. They show pictures of all the file servers they've been on and your directory listings and stuff like this, and they let people know, hey, this company still hasn't paid us, and in 2 more days we're going to dump out all their data. Be ready.
It's just amazing. You're totally right, because you hear people talk all the time that your silver bullet or your bulletproof vest is, I have good backups, so I don't have to worry about the protection side of this or the education side. Well, it's not true, because now they're getting around your backups because they're just taking the data, they're siphoning, they're in your account. Like you said, 3 to 4 weeks. Like, That's a lot of time just poking around, poking around, getting the understanding, moving side to side, getting. They're going to get a lot of information in 3 to 4 weeks. There's a lot of stuff you can get in 3 to 4 weeks if you have domain admin access.
Yeah, and so these extortionware groups, they oftentimes don't even bother with desktop level systems, right? They map out all the servers and VMs and things like this, and they hit you where it really hurts. They take out all your core business systems and things like this. Like I said, and they're getting better at it all the time. So there's now literally a thing. We could all go to the dark web, and if we fire up our Tor browser, and we can go to ransomware as a service sites, and buy, a ransomware product built and pre-configured the way we want it, and deploy it out there. Maze, that was the group I was looking for. Maze was the first time we saw a real extortion group. I don't even have to know how to build the ransomware or anything else. I can just go to them and say, hey, I'm looking for this type of ransomware to do the following things. They typically make you demonstrate that you've actually got access to some place that's worthwhile to ransomware, and they get a cut of it. So the ransomware as a service group gets 15% of whatever the total take is as payment for the ransomware that they wrote. We're seeing ransomware groups link up and work together. Maze and Lockbit now working together to publish victim data. Reevil, also known as Sodinokibi, they actually, anytime they hit somebody that's on the NASDAQ, they do like a press release style thing, like, hey, we just got company, blah, blah. And they actually notify the NASDAQ people that they're inside this and that network. They release victim data. Some of them actually run blogs about. They will literally tell you where they're going to hit next. These are our next 5 target companies. And unless unless somebody's paying attention and so somebody knows about this, that they're coming for you. And we're also seeing an improvement in just the ransomware techniques. With process injection, memory injection, a lot of antivirus shutdown. That's almost always a hallmark of these ransomware groups. Now they're going in and shutting down. There's nothing more embarrassing for a company than you've got AV deployed everywhere. Hacker gets domain admin credentials, and then the first thing they do is they head over to your antivirus, anti-malware console, and they tell it, shut all that stuff down. Oh, there it all went. Yeah. And again, that's time on target, right? There's opportunities to catch them in there, but if you don't have good internal visibility, that's a problem. And we see various levels of log wiping and stuff too to cover their tracks.
We're finding that most companies that have an IT department, till you get up into some of the major ones, that 90% of the time spent is just keeping the lights on and just kind of keeping things at bay, handling the day-to-day support tickets, watch logs and reviewing these types of potential attacks it's just unrealistic. They just don't have the time for it. or the expertise.
We have clients all the way from little 2- and 3-person companies up to, you know, multi-billion-dollar multinationals and stuff like this. And the quality of IT is as bad at both ends of the spectrum, quite honestly. Doesn't matter how much money you make. Chances are, you know, most things aren't really under your control, and it's the same thing at the small end. The sweet spot oftentimes is somewhere in the middle. You know, mid-tier companies usually, I shouldn't say usually, I say oftentimes have a little bit better control over their networks, but at either ends, it's really bad.
Yeah.
All right. So the cloud's been good to my company for the last couple of years, as more and more folks are moving there, and I'm a fan of it. Like, if you're still running Exchange servers and things like this on your site, stop doing that, please. Like, you know, Office 365 is great. You can get a bunch of stuff out there running. It's so much easier. Things like this, you know, G Suite, all that kind of stuff. Great stuff, but it's not secure. You know, Microsoft's not securing that for you. Google's not securing that for you beyond basics. You know, it's just other people's computers you're renting and using. You've still got to put in a lot of the work. Problem is, when people move from on-prem to cloud-based, you know, the only thing that's in anybody's heads is, oh, we're going to save so much money. Except that your IT staff, all the tools you have, you know, and the time it takes, you know, is not factored in. They're not ready for that cloud move. It's a very different environment. You know, and nowadays, the cloud's been around long enough, we're starting to have a real cloud legacy problem where, you know, systems that have been spun up are several years old and nobody's taking care of them. So they're unpatched, hanging out there, oftentimes accessible to the internet, systems that are just easy taking for hackers. And it's just, you know, and part of that is the ease of which, you know, folks can spin up a new instance of that, spin up a new instance of this other thing, and then people forget about them, or just like, oh, I'll get back to that later, and then they don't. And, you know, or in some cases, we've seen really large domains, like 14,000 plus servers spun up. Nobody was exactly sure what they were for anymore. The people that had actually done that to begin with had left the company, and nobody wanted to shut it down because they weren't exactly sure what it was all connected to. So they're paying, you know, $30,000, $40,000 a month for 14,000 servers that nobody's using, but they're slowly getting older and older and less secure and less secure the whole time. And of course, hackers found them eventually.
You can hack. You can. It's easy to get into remote desktop, whether it's in the cloud or on the.
Yeah, it's
right?
the same computer. It's just run in a different place, right? I mean, you're just renting somebody else's computer time from a different place. You have to do all of those things. But a lot of companies don't know what they're doing when they're getting this other cloud. They just don't realize it, right? You know, somebody's looking at, you know, well, I'll be able to cut IT staff and all, you know, since I don't have to have, you know, servers on site, they want it to be taken care of. It's like, no, you're forgetting you have to take care of those cloud servers the same way you have to take care of those localized servers.
People don't take a look at the terms and conditions that they sign with these cloud providers, where it basically tells you that they hold no responsibility on certain things. They'll do encryption at, you know, at rest and in transit and certain things like that, but the authentication and the security and the device security, those types of things are on you as the company to make sure that they're enforced and managed on an ongoing basis. If something happens, they're going to put their hands up and say, we're not responsible.
Yeah. I'm always surprised by how many cloud environments don't have firewalls. It's like, well, if you moved all your Windows servers over there and you had a firewall here, why would you assume you don't have to have a firewall in the cloud to protect them also? And there's this just crazy idea that, like, oh, we moved into Azure, that it's obviously secure. Microsoft takes care of that. No, they don't. They keep it running. That's what they're committed to doing.
They keep it running, and they give you the tools to make it secure.
Yeah, you can.
But they're not doing the actual work for you.
Yep, that's exactly how it works. And I feel like one of the things I said before is it's just too easy to spin up, you know, new instances of Linux, new instances of Windows, new SQL servers, things like this in a cloud environment. So that infrastructure tends to very quickly get away from people. And, you know, and people are, you know, like I said, IT departments are loath to turn off a server that they're not exactly sure what it's for. Well, if I turn that off, maybe something breaks that I don't know about. So this stuff just kind of grows and grows and grows. It's a problem. Keeps me fed, but it's still a problem.
Yeah.
And it's getting bigger all the time. We also see a lot of weird things like folks trying to use Windows admin personnel to manage Linux environments in the cloud. That's always guaranteed to go wrong, or the other way around, Linux trying to manage Windows environment, because they've decided to cut IT staff, because since we don't have the data center anymore, so we don't need all those people. Well, you needed them. If you're running just as many or more servers, you're going to need just as much staff.
And the complexity can be increased. I mean, with
sure, especially if you're in
adoption of mobile devices and just all the different networks that you're connecting from. I mean, you're no longer locked behind a firewall where you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, all I got to do is protect the front door." It's like there's a lot more complexity now.
Yep.
And you just have to understand going into it what you're getting into. I mean, I'm in agreement. Cloud, the adoption of cloud should be happening by everyone. I mean, there's not very many situations where I can say, yeah, you're probably not good for cloud. You know, it needs to be widely adopted, especially, I mean, COVID is a perfect for instance for why cloud is so important, because your users working for wherever they need to work need access to the tools so that you can keep getting paid and keep the business running. Yeah. But the complexity of the security required to do that increases. So you have to make sure that you're secure at the same time. That's the fun part.
Yeah, it's surprising to me how many folks don't have backups of their cloud systems. There's some kind of, idea that somehow, Microsoft or AWS is just magically backing up your servers for you. That's not how that works. They don't do that. They provide a platform to you to do whatever you'd like to do on, and that's it, unless you're specifically paying for those extra services and support. But the idea of the cloud and the reality of the cloud, to the C-suite hasn't really caught up with itself, and so unfortunately there's just a lot of cloud exploitation going on out there, and it's only going to get bigger and more. And we're starting to run into companies now that have, they're in an AWS environment, they're in an Azure environment, and because we can get it cheaper now, we're switching into a GCP environment all. So they're spread across 3 different cloud domains that all work very differently. So now instead of one set of tools, you have to know 3 different sets of tools just to make things happen. And Oracle just, put up their whole cloud offering too. So there's going to be more and more of that. All right, since I told you I wasn't going to just doom and gloom you to death, I am going to give you 3 ways that I don't have to show up and talk to you anymore, which is good. You don't really want to talk to me. I'm not fun at parties. So, we do hundreds of incident responses every year. Like I said, it's our daily. It's just normal for us. It's what we do. And out of those hundreds of incident responses that we do every year, we've identified some very, very basic things. And let's face it, it is the basic things. I'm not worried about APT. I'm not worried about zero-day exploits and stuff like this. I'm worried about simple things like good perimeter control, 2-factor authentication, and actually have an antivirus, anti-malware type thing. So let me just get into this a little bit. So controlling your perimeter, it starts with controlling your perimeter at your firewalls and VPNs. If you've been paying attention during COVID, the attack groups have all tooled up for hitting all of our remote access stuff. So Pulse Secure VPN, actually I think the first thing that they hit was Citrix ADCs. So they discovered a remote access vulnerability in Citrix, and they exploited that. And then it was the Pulse VPN, and then it was the PAN-OS and the Palo Alto firewalls, and then there was I forget whose VPN was after that. And then 3 days ago, there's a new vulnerability in Pulse VPNs, and F5 load balancers was another one in there. Things like this. It's all those infrastructure, perimeter systems that folks don't take care of. They don't update, the firmware, the operating system, the things like that, and they're not paying attention to all the exploit stuff out there, and that's become the primary way that all of these intrusions start. The firewalls themselves need to actually be doing its job. They need to be blocking things, and they need to be logging things. One of my least favorite things about the way people set up firewalls out there is they'll set up logging to tell me what bounced off the firewall. I don't care anything about what didn't get into the network. I care about the things that did get into the network. So just telling me that you blocked 3 million different items, that's not really very useful. What about the data that went out? What about the things that did come in? Turning on things like GeoIP filtering. If you're not familiar with this concept, unless you're a great big multinational, even in them, they can turn on GeoIP filtering. But for most of us that have moderate-sized companies, I'll use myself as an example. I operate primarily within the US. I have some operations in Japan, a little bit in Hong Kong, and a couple countries in Europe. So we don't accept traffic from a big chunk of the world. I have no operations in Latin America, no operations in mainland China, no operations throughout most of Southeast Asia, and none in Eastern Europe or Russia. So we simply at the firewall tell it, we don't take any traffic from any of those other locations, just these 16 or 17 countries or regions that we actually do business with, that we might need to have a bit of data go back and forth. That immediately reduces your attack surface, right? You're not going to get Russian phishing emails if they're blocked off and I don't have anybody I need to talk to in Russia. Turn on all your AV and anti-malware protections built into your firewall. Why not, make that a thing that you do? Go through your actual firewall instructions. Every firewall instructor has, a company out there has instructions that are like, hey, here's all the security best practices. And they have big checklists. Go through that and follow the checklist and go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have RDP open to the internet because that's really silly. Maybe I shouldn't let SMB be, and go down through those and just, make sure somebody goes through and does that.
You think on your checklist, it says specifically, never turn on an any rule for TTP.
There's all kinds of really good information that every one of your firewall vendors provides. It says, look, these are all great things. You should definitely configure your firewall to accomplish this. Here's how you do it.
Yeah, it's amazing when we go into clients and we do what we call a discovery, right? And how many firewalls they've got this big Palo Alto firewall and it's just nothing configured.
Right.
And you're just, what's the point of spending all this money if you're not going to configure it? It's not working. It's not doing anything. It's a router at this point, you know?
Here's one that I see all the time that really bothers me, and I've never been able to convince people to do it, is whitelisting sites that your servers or critical systems can reach. Right, so I'll be in somebody's data center, I'll be sitting with sysadmin, and it'll be in a cloud environment, and I'll see them open, Google from, an Active Directory server, and I'm like, wait, why can the AD talk to Google? They're like, well, you can reach anywhere from this. No. Critical machines should only be able to reach some of the Windows sites so they can get their updates, maybe their AV anti-malware sites so they can get patched. Maybe whatever critical application they're running on there so they can patch that. But for most server systems, you have a very small list of sites that those servers should actually be able to talk to, right? If you got to go Google something or you got to check your Gmail or whatever the other thing is, do that from a non-server system, because if these servers can only reach certain places outside, it's real hard for an attacker to steal data off that machine, because it's only allowed to go to 4 sites in the world, because that's all it really needs to communicate with outside of your own network. It's not perfect, but it does prevent a lot of bad activity. Ensure that your firewall logs actually get stored somewhere. Most people, the logs on their firewall are just rolling over. They've got, maybe if they're lucky, 24 hours worth of logs because they didn't push them off to somewhere. Like I said before, don't log just what's rejected by your firewall. Have somebody occasionally look at it to make sure it's actually running and doing what it's supposed to. And for God's sakes, in your cloud environments, they have to have firewalls there too, just like in any other environment. It doesn't change. There's no magic cloud firewall out there. All right, so 2-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, whatever you want to call it. It's just that little thing that pops up on your phone that says, hey, was that you logging in? And you go, yep, that was me. It works if you apply it to everything. At the minimum, you want to apply it to all your administrator accounts. It's easy to apply multi-factor authentication to your Office 365 or Gmail accounts because it's free. They literally give you authenticator apps that are free to use, distribute to everybody, and you can use that. I run into a lot of companies where when we're suggesting this, and it's always after they've been breached, they have this, everybody will quit because they won't want to do that. It's like, let's see, I can push one button on my cell phone. I do that a lot of times a day anyway, right? Just to get into my cell phone. Or I can not have a job. I feel like I can probably afford to push that one button on my cell phone and keep my job. And it's going to make us all that much more secure.
And not to mention that with like conditional access and a lot of those other types of functions, the amount of times you actually have to authenticate using two-factor, like that your device isn't just already recognized, or it's so minimal, and people are just, they take it so far out of like come on, all your like I have a Duo app that basically has like 30 different applications that I have two-factor turned on for, and it's just what I'm used to now. I'm just used to it. It's not a big deal. Like, don't make it more than what it is. Just move forward and protect yourself.
And it's easy, it's cheap, it's oftentimes free. Ideally you do it across all your environments. I realize sometimes people just limit it to their email or, just for certain machines in house. But I mean, if you think about it in a larger standpoint, you have a lot of critical data in Salesforce. You have a lot of critical data in this, file sharing, cloud file sharing site or something like that. Even, important LinkedIn accounts, things like this. So ideally use something that, speaks what they call SAML or something like that. So you can authenticate all these cloud resources too. Just as easily as you're, authenticating for your email or your local system logins or server logins and things like this. The broader coverage you can do on that, the better you are. And like I said, if you think about it, we all have a lot of company critical data stored in cloud environments. Almost all those cloud environments will support some kind of two-factor authentication that, make yourself safe. And bottom line here is it stops a lot of that business email compromise, account compromise, phishing, all that stuff just gets thwarted by having two-factor. It just doesn't work anymore, which is great.
The fact that almost everybody that we run into, almost every single potential client, you start looking at passwords and they're just reused and reused.
Oh yeah, they're just garbage. Every server, has the same password on it. It's just bad. Like I said, you can roll that out to your VPN solutions and your Citrix. All your remote access solutions will support that. You can do this. It's not as big a task as it seems, and it's honestly not very expensive. But the amount of pain and suffering it will save you later on is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's instantaneous how well that works too. Antivirus, anti-malware. Absolutely not a sexy topic or anything like that, but it works a lot of the time. It really does. But in order for it to work, it's got to, like two-factor, it's got to be on everything. Put it on your laptops, desktops, servers, email, take advantage of the plugins in your firewall. Again, I do not know why people put Windows servers onto cloud environments and then just magically assume it doesn't need antivirus there. It's the same 2012 Windows server you had in your internal environment. You had AV on. Why, when you move it to the cloud, do you suddenly not need AV? I don't know how that mindset works, but put it on there and use it. The Mac people out there, I know there's a couple of you out there right now. You get viruses. You get lots and lots of viruses. Most of the Mac viruses, they aren't ransomware or anything like that. They're actually credential stealing stuff. So credential stealing viruses that run in your browser and things like this that scamming all your bank account information and your email account information and things like that. And there's tons of it. And then if you want to go a little bit further than that, I recommend looking into what they call an MDR, managed detection and response solution. So a lot of times, AV and anti-malware and these more extensive solutions like this, you don't have the staff in-house to monitor this stuff yourself 24/7, but you can get these packages through a managed detection and response company that they do have a SOC. They have a 24/7 SOC, and they will alert you anytime anything weird happens. They will even, help you contain it and all that, for a few dollars more per month per workstation or server or wherever you have it at. I don't have a favorite in this. People ask me that all the time. Brian, what's your favorite? I don't know, the one that works.
They're all very.
If you're out there using Windows Defender and you think that's going to work, I'd like to remind you didn't pay for that, and it works about as good as anything else you didn't pay for. That's not an adequate solution. Just thinking that the built-in Windows Defender is going to save you. It'll save you occasionally, but not most of the time. So kind of good news, bad news there, I guess. I lied to you. Technically, there's 4 things I'd like you to do. Patch everything. Patch your operating systems. Patch your applications. They're free. That's why I don't include it in the 3 magic things. The other ones might cost you a little something. The patches are free. You got to patch your Adobe. You got to patch your QuickBooks, your Chrome, your Zoom, your Citrix, your firewalls, your VPN. You got to patch all this stuff. Camera systems, phone systems. We just had a hospital get broken into because their camera system was the point of compromise, because the vendor that ran the camera system was using the same password for all the servers at every company they went to. So literally any place that these guys operated, it had the same admin credentials. It got compromised in one place, and then it went out to all 300 of this camera company's clients. Jeez. One of them happened to be a hospital of ours. You got to patch this stuff. Phone systems. Nobody ever looks at their phone system. All these things require patches. They're all free. They're part of your maintenance licenses or service contracts, things like this. You got to get in there and just do the boring, hard work. Which brings me to my last thing. Security, it's a process. There's not a product you can buy. Since I deal mostly in data breach and incident response situations, clients say this to me over and over again. What do we need to buy to make this go away? It's like that ship sailed. That's not an option that's on the table right now. You're in the data breach, you're in the incident. There's nothing you can buy, nor I want you to buy right now, that's going to save you from this. That's too late. That was over there in the prevent end of things before we got to data breach. It's putting in the work every day. It's having a plan. It's coming in and implementing that plan and moving yourself a little bit forward every single day. Number one security threat, not enough IT staff or unqualified IT staff out there. Lots of companies, looking to MSPs. Unfortunately, they're looking for the absolute cheapest MSP that you can find. The absolute cheapest MSP you can find is worse than no MSP at all. They're terrible at it, and lots of folks have been breached or ransomware because their MSP was so bad at their job, all their clients got ransomware, things like that.
It's an interesting situation that you bring up there, because when you really sit down and you think about it, you've mentioned there's three to four bullet savings that kind of help to protect you, and it's very true. I would probably say that there's 5 personally, because I think education is got to be the 5th magic bullet. That you got to educate your end users on not doing certain things, like don't open that link, don't click that link, don't put your password into things. But yes,
I agree with some of that. So my big issue with phishing emails and phishing your own people and phishing training and things like this is, how did that phishing email get to that end user's mailbox to begin? What's wrong with my email kill chain that allowed that phishing email to end up in an end user's mailbox? And there's only, probably 15 actual different types of phishing emails out there. We can put all the technical controls in place to knock those out. Not to saying it's going to be perfect. You're going to occasionally get one, and that's where that training comes in.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see more companies focusing on having a good, strong kill chain, getting all their DMARC settings right, in their DNS, interacting with their email, getting some sort of email security product, and really making sure that like this 15 generic type of phishing attacks that occur don't land in a user's mailbox.
Sure. Sure.
And then rely on the phishing, education and other security education, because that's always good. And I can't tell you how many times, the end user is actually the first indicator that something is wrong in the company. That first call to the help desk, is from a user is like, hey, this doesn't look right to me. Anyway, here's all my things that you should do that most people aren't doing. And all of these are going to save you. And with that, nice look at my headquarters building here in Elk Ridge, Maryland, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
So I have a couple questions for you from just to kind of get. So one, thank you for the for working with us and speaking with us today, Brian. There was a lot of good insight, and it's been a lot of what we've talked about over the last 4 events. But just you coming from the side of, hey, I've seen all this stuff, and it's really important. You'd mentioned that you have companies of all different sizes, right?
Yep.
I mean, all the way down to the 2-person.
Little bitty 2-person operations, all the way up to 400,000 employee companies.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that there's nobody that's protected against this from a size perspective? Like, they just don't care. Like, it's not personal.
I don't know that they just don't care. I mean, if you're on the very small end, you don't have the budget, you don't have the people, you're just trying to, keep the lights on every day, right? Make payroll, things like that. If you're at the opposite end of the spectrum, into the really big companies, they didn't get really big through organic growth. They got big through acquisition of, hundreds or even thousands of other companies over the years. And what happens is during those acquisitions, this company's IT just gets bolted on that company's IT, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and so on and so on. And so over 20, 30, 40, 50-year lifetime period of those companies, it just becomes a kind of a unmanageable mess of various IT infrastructures and requirements and needs and things like this that becomes very, very difficult to maintain.
So somebody gets hacked, they reach out to you guys to help them with the next steps. Let's just say 500 employees.
Sure.
Under 500 employees. Mm-hmm. What's the timeline realistically to get them back up and running? What average timeline? If it's something they can look at a month.
It depends really in the nature of the attack. Are we ransomware and we had 400 cloud servers and they're all tied up right now, and we don't have backups. So we're going to be reinstalling from hand, by hand operating systems and things like this, transitioning to a different environment, things like that, versus something where it's, hey, we found, we had some clients reporting that they'd sent, payments off to, a different ACH that wasn't us, and now how many mailboxes are involved, or hey, turns out our database server in this cloud environment, this NoSQL database server that we didn't really understand how to use, turns out we just leaked 200,000 records out onto the internet. Somebody found them and things like this. So every breach is a little bit different. We had one just popped up last week. Disgruntled employee got moved out of a job, to a different position, mainly because the person wasn't showing up for work. But they just decided, oh, hey, I have access to a bunch of shares. I'm going to delete everything in them. And nice lady just came in one morning and deleted, 9 terabytes of shared data or something crazy like that, which, immediately then impacted, hundreds and hundreds of people. So, every incident's a little bit different. So there's not a magic number for how fast you're going to get back up. And then also that depends, what do you have on site, right? Because I'm there to help you and coach you through it, contain the incident from getting any worse. But I'm not doing the remediation. I'm not going to put you back to right. That's your own IT staff, that's going to do that. That's going to restore data, get services back up and running, or maybe the vendors you're working with, things like that. They're going to do that. Well, how readily can you do that? How bad was the damage? How well prepared are you for that damage? What your business continuity plans look like, things like that. A lot of that sort of how mature are you as an organization really plays into how fast you're going to get back to running.
So what are the discovery type questions first three questions that you ask if somebody calls and says, hey, I've been breached? What?
I actually just have one question, and then I do a bunch of follow-ups. But I always, so if somebody calls our 1-800 number, and it's always like 3 a.m, we call them right back. We have a call tree, and so I think we're currently running. I think the longest one we've had recently was an 11-minute turnaround to call somebody back. But we just get on the phone with them, establish who they are, and then it's like, okay, just tell me the story as best you know it right now, and then they just dump everything that they have. Just keep telling me, and then as we're listening to this and writing it down and taking notes and wiping sleep out, we go, okay, well, I have a couple follow-up questions now, and it's based on this or that, or do you have logs, do you have the ability to restore, who else is involved, all these things, so it's just kind of give me as much as right now, and then we'll ask a few follow-up questions, and then we move immediately to containment planning. All right, if that's the situation right now, what can we do to prevent it from getting any worse right now? Like, who's in charge of this? Can they go and shut that off? Who's in charge of that? Can they swipe out all those accounts? So on. We make a little containment plan, and then everybody surges forward, and you try and get that containment up to prevent anything worse from happening. Because that's always it's kind of like being a paramedic, right? I'm not the doctor that's going to take care of it. I'm the paramedic that shows up and goes, okay, I need to keep the patient breathing, so that's going on, and I got to stop this blood over here, from leaking out further onto the internet. So that's what we're doing to get them stabilized, so that ideally we can get them back to business normal as quickly as possible. Great
feedback, great information. Thank you so much, Brian, for the time that you put in today. It was wonderful. It was good to hear from the other side of the table, if you will. So
it's messy over here on this side of the table. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, once you've experienced a breach, you're starting to move into an interesting situation, right? An interesting next few weeks to months to, I guess, even years sometimes, right?
Sometimes in large organizations, it can take years to, correct everything that needs to happen, because nothing moves fast in a really large company.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much. Atlantic Data Forensics guys, you guys are doing a wonderful job. Hopefully we don't run into a situation where we have to engage you guys. We haven't yet, cross our fingers, but I think if we do, we know who to call, and hopefully everybody that's watching knows who to call if they do run into a breach or have an issue that they need help with. So thank you very much.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Good to talk to y'all.
Yep. Thanks a lot, man.
Bye.
So as I had mentioned before, we have a couple things that we want to take care of. Before I get started, I want to send a big thank you out to everybody that's joined today. I also want to send a thank you out to the folks over here at PGH Networks that helped me put this event together, specifically Nicole Murtha, some of the leaders here, Greg Pack, Bill Weiser, that have helped kind of put everything together. I also would like to send a special shout out to Spark Designs. They're our marketing company, have really done a great job in working with us to put these 5 wonderful episodes, this series on throughout this summer and fall. So special shout out to Mackenzie and Liz over there at Spark Designs. They're really, really fantastic. Mackenzie's behind the scenes right now with us today. So great job, Mackenzie. And then I think it's time for a special gift that we're going to be giving away. We're going to give away a a phone soap smartphone sanitizer, and we're going to use the our favorite thing, the wheel of names. So, Mackenzie, why don't we give it a spin? Let's see who the lucky winner is. Oh, Dee Siegel. Dee Siegel, you are the lucky winner of the phone soap smartphone sanitizer. So thank you for joining, and hopefully your phone stays clean and sanitized. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining the event today. It was really wonderful. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out to the PGH team at marketing@pghnetworks.com. And with that being said, have a great day, everyone.